Okay, everybody, so now you can see that I've done the wood framing around the edge of this to separate the cobblestone lower half from what will be a masonry upper half. I've built the windows out of just some simple matchstick, or you could use basswood or balsa wood. Right. I've also added the frame and the awning, okay, to the front of this. This is going to look nice in the end. Now we need to talk about some serious masonry work on the top half of this house. So, what we're going to use is some simple spackle. I'd thought about a sand before to give it a texture, but honestly it's not going to have that masonry look. It's not going to look that realistic, so we're going to use spackle, which is a great modeling tool for both terrain and for figure bases. Anyway, what I like is the pink stuff. This is Dried-X, sorry. And it looks pink, but it dries white when it's done drying. It goes on that way. That's nice because then you can tell when it's ready to work with. So I want a really super thin coat on this. I do not want a gooky mess. If I was doing a half timbered frame house, I'd want to fill in with a thick coat of the spackle to create a masonry. But I want, excuse me, I'm sorry. I want just enough masonry to just give this a texture. So I'm going to take a little spackle on a flat knife, so I just got a plain old kitchen butter knife. I'm going to start to spread that on. I want to get it super thin. I'm just giving it enough so that this has kind of a masonry texture to it. Okay, I'm going to apply that around. I'm going to avoid about an eighth of an inch on the edges here, because I'm going to have some metal framing that runs up the side of this house. But that's okay. If I get a little bit on the edge here, I can always kind of just chip that off later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to apply this masonry to the entire upper half of the house, not including, of course, where we're going to put the roof. Sorry, the shingles. All right. So I just want to, again, I want a nice thin coat, just enough to give this a texture. A couple reasons I want it thin. One is it's going to look better, it's going to look more natural. And the second reason is I want it to dry faster so I can get on with this project. So if I make it super thick, it's going to take a lot longer. When you get down near that timber frame, it's okay if you get a little bit onto the wood. You're just going to kind of push it in there. Alright, and so the same thing. So the only trick of this is just working around the wood, so. But hopefully you can begin to see, and I can even texture that a little bit with the knife. Hopefully you can begin to see we're going to get kind of this nice masonry looking stucco top half to this thing. So I'm going to continue working on that, applying the spackler on the top half of this house, and then we'll talk about the next step right after that. Okay, so now we are done with the masonry upper half of the building, or the spackling, if you will. Alright, so just a reminder, what we used for that was the spackling compound. Alright, so the stuff that goes on pink, and as you can see, dries white. And I thought I'd mention spackling is what we call it in the United States. In the UK, as I understand it, they call it filler. Alright, so if you didn't know what this crazy American was talking about when he said spackling, for you Brits, this is filler. Alright, so that's the idea. So we put that on there, and you can see that, let me get up close, it has this nice kind of a rough texture to it. It'd be kind of that stucco or a masonry feel. Just always like to mention substitutions. If you didn't have this brickwork, the styrene sheet, couldn't get your hands on that, you could have done the whole building in stucco. Still separate it with a frame here just to give it a nice look, but that would have been an alternative for you, just to keep that in mind. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is creating a metal frame for the edges of this building. All right, the metal frame you see in a lot of Iron Kingdoms buildings, they have the rivets and so forth. Couple ways to do this. I'm going to show you, both are cheap, but in inexpensive ways. I'm going to show you a simple way and a not so simple way, but both are inexpensive. Alright, let's start with the way I'm not going to do it this time, but a very easy way to do it, which is you could take a piece of styrene. Alright, you know that if you've watched my videos before, I like just for sale sign, plastic for sale sign, 97-cent piece of styrene. Alright, you could score that down the middle. Okay, just put it down and lightly with your X-Acto knife, score it down the middle without cutting through. Okay, you can bend it, okay, and then place it on the corner of your building like that to create a nice kind of frame for the side. Right, I am going to use it, so that's a way that just about everybody could do and have access to that material. I, however, am going to use a material that I got by the same company, Plastruct, which made the cobblestone facing styrene sheet for the bottom. They make a great product. It's called it's made out of styrene. It's called an angle piece. But basically, if I take one of these out, you can see that it is kind of this L shape or right angle piece of plastic. I am basically going to use that and apply it to the corners here to make my vertical framing on the outside corners of my house. Alright, so this comes in all sorts of sizes. This is a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch piece. By the way, speaking of price, 4 24-inch pieces come in this package, and this cost me about $6.60. So, you know, I used one of these 4 to do all the parts of this house that I need to do. So you're looking at, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.70 or so worth of plastic. So again, this is inexpensive, just like the for sale sign. So it just that, you know, if this is inaccessible to you, go with the styrene sheet method, but or cardboard. But this is available at, you know, a lot of your better model railroad or modeling hobby shops, and it's definitely available online too. I've ordered this online before. Alright, so anyway, what I'm going to do is I've actually pre-cut some of these frame pieces out of this L-shaped Plastruct styrene, and I'm just going to glue it with white glue onto the corners of my building as such. Alright, so I'm going to glue a piece there. Now, with this masonry or spackling, I wanted to mention something. First of all, if you have any kind of protruding bits, little points of spackling sticking out after you've stippled this on, make sure you sand that down. By the way, this is a sanding block. So a lot of people like to use sandpaper, but these foam sanding blocks that are available from hardware stores are super cheap, and they're a lot more handy to me. So anyway, if you have any protruding bits of spackle that are kind of pointing out, you know, brush those off, sand those down a little bit, because when you go, after you paint your structure, if you're using this, you know, and us wargamers aren't always nice on our terrain, and you chip that off, you're going to see the white underneath the paint, so we don't want that to happen. So if there's any protruding bits, sand that down. Also, because we're going to be applying the metal framing to the top half where we might have some spackling on there, you want to go in there and you know, sand that down on the edges so we can get our joint on there really nice. And by the way, some dust will come off there, so make sure you shake that off. So basically I've got my my styrene bit that's going to go on the bottom, my styrene right angle bit that's going to go on the top. You'll notice that the wooden frame is in between. I'm going to cover that up too. So I just cut off some small little joints out of the same, actually not the same material. This is the same kind of L-beam or right angle piece. It's just a little bit wider. This is 3/8 of an inch wide, and I'm going to use that to kind of make joints that cover up where those two pieces come together. I'm going to put rivets up and down this thing in the next stage, which I'll show you, but I'm going to put kind of a heavy-duty rivet on this. It'll just make a nice visual effect. All right, so that way we can go all the way up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these Plastruct corner reinforcements on all 4 corners of the building. All right, and then we'll do some riveting in just a couple minutes, and you'll see how we go about that. So, yeah, let me get those on, and then we'll go on to the next step.